Good morning, TJIF. You are watching The Sweat presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. I'm Jesse Cofield. I'm going to be your host for the next 55 minutes. We have a jam-packed show, so much to get to. The World Cup kicks off on Sunday, so we're going to preview those matches. Plus, a special guest is going to break down the 2022 PFL World Championship. We're also going to hit on NBA, college football. But let's start things off with DraftKings contributor Pierce Dietrich. Pierce, let's take a look at some bets available on the DK Sportsbook for Week 11. You're going to let me know if you want to take the over or under on the following bets, okay? Let's do it.
Got it.
Got it. It sounds easy enough. We can do this. All right, Taylor Heineke passing prop. It is set at 215.5. They're taking on the Houston Texans, who are 1-7-1. Wow. Heineke completed 17 of 29 passes. He had 211 yards and 1 interception in that win over the Eagles. It was really dicey there for a while. But do you think that he can go over this mark against the lowly Texans?
No, I don't believe that he's going to go over this mark. I mean, maybe if he converts every third down conversion again, they could possibly get over this. But you're facing the Texans. You want to beat the Texans, it's pretty simple. Just run the ball against them. Washington doesn't really have a dynamic offense. If they're smart, if they're wise, they're just going to run the ball, play defense, get out of Houston with the win. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be the case. Even if they do pass, I mean, we're talking about a quarterback that just wings the ball up, throws prayers, and half the time the prayers do not come answered. You know, they're worse than 50-50 balls. So sometimes he does get lucky and gets a pass interference call. Well, that's not going to help you in the yardage total or the yardage department. I would expect this game to be close, Washington to run the ball, or if Washington gets the lead, to continue to run the ball. There's really just nothing that says that Heineke is going to really annihilate this pass defense. I'm not behind it. I'm not even really a big fan of Washington this week. I think this is going to be a big letdown spot for them.
Okay, how about Cortland Sutton? His receiving prop is set at 60.5 here. It looks like Jerry Jeudy is going to be out for the Broncos, right? So Cortland Sutton, 60.5 receiving yards. When Jeudy went out last week, he did record 6 interceptions on 11 targets. He had 66 yards in that loss to Tennessee. So versus the Raiders, do you think he's going to step up here in this spot?
No, I don't. It's the Broncos. Be careful betting anything that hinges on Russell Wilson's play or even Cortland Sutton's play. He did get a boost last week with 11 targets when Jeudy went out, but he still only caught for 66 yards. Yeah, you can attack the Raiders' pass defense, but this is the Broncos. This is Russell Wilson, and he is erratic. He is washed up. You cannot count on him. You can't count on the scheme. You should be able to. They don't have a running game, but that kind of hurts them as well because when you don't have a running game, the Raiders can pull their guys back off the line of scrimmage. They can double team Sutton if they like, triple team Sutton because there just aren't any weapons. He got 11 targets. He only caught 6 of those passes. That says a lot when you're only catching half of your passes. Also, if people want to equate Sutton to being a wide receiver number 1, 11 targets, only 66 yards, that's not a wide receiver number 1. When the over-under is set at around 60 against the Raiders, you're not a wide receiver number 1. I will go under on this.
All right, how about Dalvin Cook? His rushing and receiving prop is set at 98.5. This man has been absolutely on fire for the Vikings. Can he keep it going here? This Cowboys defense cannot consistently stop the running game.
They can't consistently stop the running game, but they can absolutely rush the passer, and the Vikings are running really hot. At some point, there's going to have to be some sort of regression towards the mean. They can't just keep piling. Maybe they can. Maybe they're the greatest team of all time. I'm not ready to buy into that. And the reason I'm not willing to buy into that's a point that Steve Buchanan made earlier this week when he suggested rostering the Dallas DST. Dallas is a great pass rush. Kirk Cousins is facing a 25% pressure rate. He's been hit more than any quarterback in the league. And it's not necessarily because the line's not playing well. It's because he's holding onto the ball too long. If you're going to hold on the ball really long against Dallas, you're going to lose. Your offense is going to struggle. I expect the offense to struggle. That's going to bring down Dalvin Cook's yards, so I'll take the under.
All right. Baker Mayfield. PJ Walker is injured. Panthers going to start Baker Mayfield. The Ravens know him well from when he was with Cleveland. Can he get a touchdown? No.
This is a stupid bet, and I don't suggest that anyone take any Baker Mayfield. Look, if you're taking Baker Mayfield bets, just go ahead over to the DraftKings page, scroll to the bottom, and there's this thing that says gambling problem. Go ahead and click on that. Now, if you're unwilling to do that or unwilling to admit that you might have a problem, here, I'll tell you why you can bet your farm on Baker Mayfield. It is a very low number. He does have a touchdown in every game he's played this season, and Baltimore has allowed a touchdown pass in 7 of the last 9. They even gave up a touchdown pass to Andy Dalton in the last game. I mean, it's such a low number. I think you can get over this, but I really would encourage people not to bet Baker Mayfield. It's worse than betting Russell Wilson. Much worse.
All right, Chicago at Atlanta. The point total for this one is 49.5. Do you see this one possibly going under this mark here?
Well, that's what everyone's thinking now. Earlier in the week, this game had 77% of the tickets, 90% of the cash was on the over. That's switched. Now it's only 50% of the cash on the over. 50% of the tickets. Yeah, it's 60% of the cash. Either way, it's gone down. People are putting more money on the under now. I get the reasons to go with the over because Chicago, 6 of the last 8, they've gone over. I think each of the last 5, 7 of the last 9, they've gone over. The offense looks very explosive and dynamic. They're going to be playing indoors. It's a good opportunity against a bad defense. Atlanta's offense, not very sexy, not very appealing, but they get the job done. They're winning games. They're scoring just enough points. And they're also going to be facing a bad defense. Both these defenses are not great in the red zone. Both the offenses have been good in the red zone. Everything points to this going over. I think there's going to be a correction, and all the money's going to swing back towards the over. So I will go over, and I love this game of DFS too.
All right, Pierce, Jets, Pats. Oh, my God. The point total for this one is very low. It's sitting at 38 right now on the DK Sportsbook. Each of the Jets' last 4 games have gone under the total points line, averaging about 42 points per game at Gillette Stadium. It's so low. Do you think that it could go over this?
No, the market says it's low, and it's probably going to go lower in terms of that number. 66% of the tickets, 90% of the cash is on the under. People hate this game, or at least it just doesn't seem appealing. It seems like there's not going to be a lot of points. I guess if you like defense, then this is a great game. The Jets' defense is really good this season, and the Patriots' offense isn't very good, so that means probably not going to get any points. And the Patriots' defense hasn't really been a slouch either. They're not probably as good as the Jets, but they've been very solid. The one thing that the Patriots' defense probably could work on is their rush defense, but they're not going to have to worry about that because the Jets' rushing offense is non-existent now that they've lost Breece Hall. Both defenses are in great spots. Both offenses are in bad spots. I know the number is low, but I would go with the under.
All right. How about your favorite over on the Week 11 board? Where are you looking?
Favorite over on the board, I'm just going to stick with the Bears game. I mean, that's where the public is. That's where the money is. That's where the trend with the Bears is. Also, I think the Falcons offense just isn't getting enough respect because they don't pass the ball. People they're not dynamic and fun to talk about. Marcus Mariota just wins games. Marcus Mariota just moves the chains. Their running backs, Patterson is exciting, but he hasn't been in play for the last couple of weeks. But now that he's back in a good matchup, I think he's going to surprise some people. Tyler Algier has been running well. Drake London, Kyle Pitts could all bounce back. I really think that this Atlanta offense is getting slept on too much. They can put points up in this situation in the Dome. I think that's going to be a lot of points, explosive game. Don't talk yourself out of Chicago, Atlanta.
All right, Pierce, how about your favorite under on the Week 11 board? Where are you going for this one?
Favorite under, I will go with the Texans and Washington. I just don't think that these offenses. I like the offenses, but I don't think that they're going to score very many points. I think they're going to get yards. I mean, you look at last week what Houston did. Davis Mills threw for 300 yards. His receivers were productive. Dameon Pierce almost rushed for 100 yards in that game. But at the end of the day, they didn't score any points. Davis Mills will make bad plays in bad situations. He'll throw the wrong pick. They just don't quite get the ball into the end zone. And on the other side, I am expecting Washington to absolutely lay an egg coming from this Monday night game, going to Houston. Houston's a lot better than people give them credit. Yes, as you mentioned earlier, they're 1-7-1. But they've been in just about every single one of those games. Every game is nearly a one possession game. They're kind of reminiscent of the Detroit Lions last season where they never won, but they're always in games. They're always close to games. And I think this is one where there's not going to be any points, and the Houston Texans can absolutely sneak away with the win.
All right, good stuff. Thank you, Pierce. Appreciate it as always. You can go. We'll talk to you later. We'll talk to you on Sunday, probably. Now let's take a look ahead at Sunday night, though, with Steve Buchanan. Jesse Cofield here along with DraftKings contributor Steve Buchanan. Welcome to this week's Showdown Spotlight presented by KFC. We have a great division matchup this week with the Chiefs visiting the Chargers. The Chiefs took the first matchup of the season in week 2, 27-24. Potential for a lot of points in this one, Steve. So who are you going with for your KFC bucket pick?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a great spot for Austin Ekeler. You want to talk about somebody who can't be scripted out of a game no matter what the Chargers are ahead or behind, but the Chiefs have allowed the second most receptions to the running back position. That works out perfectly for the Chargers, who target the running back position more than any other team of the league, 28% of the time. Ekeler comes into this game averaging 9 targets per game in this PPR format. That is going to be a great spot for Austin Ekeler.
All right, who's the player you're stacking with your bucket pick, Austin Ekeler?
Yeah, so we could see a lot of injuries with the Chiefs receivers. So I'm going with Kadarius Toney, who just got acquired a couple of weeks ago by the Chiefs. He saw an uptick in his playing time. Last week saw 5 targets, 2 rush attempts on 28 snaps played. That snap count should continue to go up, and that should put Toney in a great spot here against the Chargers.
All right, thank you, Steve, and thank you for watching this week's Showdown Spotlight presented by KFC. Order all your family-style favorites and keep your team fueled all season. That's finger-licking good. What's up, guys? Welcome back to The Sweat. I'm Jesse Cofield. I have 2 soccer dudes joining me right now, DK Nation's Chinmay Vaidya and RotoWire's AJ Scholes. Fellas, football is life! Need your favorite bets ahead of Sunday and Monday's World Cup action. Okay, Sunday, 11 a.m. We got Qatar versus Ecuador. Chinmay, who is winning this one?
So in the era of the host country playing the first match of the World Cup, only one team has ever drawn, and that was South Africa against Mexico. All the other host countries have won their opening matches, and frankly, Ecuador is not at the same level of Mexico. Now, Qatar has had some concerns playing, against tougher competition, but I don't believe that Ecuador is at the level of some of the other teams that they've played. So I'll take Qatar on the money line as the host country in the opening match. The host country tends to do well in these games.
Yeah, Qatar plus 225, Ecuador plus 140, and AJ plus 215 for a draw, which Chinmay said never happens, but...
Yeah, I mean, for this one, like, host nation is one thing, but when it's, Brazil, Russia, like some of these past host nations have actually been good quality sides. This Qatar team is not that good, and probably, in my opinion, wouldn't have qualified for the World Cup to begin with if they weren't hosting. So I know Ecuador is not great, but I actually have them winning this one. I like them plus 140 on the money line. With it being the first game of the tournament, scoring could be a little light. So I also don't hate taking the under here, under 1.5 at plus 150. You put those 2 bets together, you can get Ecuador to win and under 1.5 goals at plus 550.
All right, let's move on to Monday at 8 a.m. We're going to have England versus Iran. So what are you looking to play in this match? England is minus 275. Iran is plus 1,000 now. So AJ, what do you think? Can you find any value in this one? I mean, I think it's going to be England here.
Yeah, obviously England, the heavy favorites. So that is the question. How do you get value out of this contest? And I think the best place to look is to go to the spread here. And for me, I'll go England minus 1.5 goals comes in at plus 115, and would even consider going bigger to get more value. England minus 2.5 goals at plus 350. I think if you are going to go on the bigger bet here, go minus 2.5. It probably makes sense to just snag Harry Kane as an anytime goal scorer at plus 110. He's going to lead the attack here. So there are multiple ways to get some value out of England, starting with the spread, in my opinion.
Chinmay, where are you looking for value in this one?
Yeah, I think AJ pretty much covered it. I mean, those are the bets that you would go. Iran has had a ton of off-field issues. There's so much controversy surrounding them. England is coming into this tournament hot, looking to get off to a good start. Harry Kane has been on fire with Tottenham this season, so I would expect him to continue his goal-scoring ways. And if you want to find value, Harry Kane, anytime goal scorer is plus money, so then you can go England money line as a parlay with that and still get plus value. But you can also go England minus 1.5 goals and get plus 115. I think any of those bets are really good in this situation.
All right, Monday at 11 a.m., we have Senegal versus the Netherlands. When you're looking at this matchup, Senegal has a strong defensive unit, but they are missing their best attacking player. So Chinmay, where are you considering taking action here?
Yeah, that's a tough blow for Senegal. Sadio Mane was playing really well with Bayern Munich, and he was obviously their premier player. And they're down a little bit now. But the good news for them, at least, is he has been ruled out ahead of the tournament now. So now they can plan for life without him for this tournament. So they can reassess their structure, reassess their playing style, and kind of hunker in that way. Netherlands tends to struggle in these opening matches. They haven't been in a World Cup for the last. They weren't in the World Cup in 2018. This is their first match since 2014 in this event. I don't really hate Senegal double chance coming in at plus 145. But other than that, I would stick with the Netherlands. If you're asking me for a straight up money line bet, I would back the Dutch in this one.
AJ, what's your take on this one?
Yeah, I mean, we were pretty certain that Sadio Mane wasn't going to be available for this game no matter what. It's just a matter of him being out for the entire tournament now. So it doesn't change the approach in this game here. I think minus 175 is a little too much juice to give up to take Netherlands money line. And you look at the total, with it being under 2.5 as kind of the favorite option there. I think you go game parlay on this one. Take Netherlands to win under 2.5 goals, comes in at a really solid plus 210. Considering how heavily favored they are. And again, if you look at that in terms of like victory options for them to win, but under 2.5, you're really looking at Netherlands either 1-0 or 2-0 here. And so I would bet both those options. Just take them both, the exact score. Netherlands 1-0 comes in at plus 500. Netherlands 2-0 comes in at plus 600. And you're really getting the most bang for your buck out of a win in a low scoring game.
All right, Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern, huge match, big implications for the rest of the tournament. You got USA versus Wales. AJ, what's your favorite bet in this one? The Welsh have Gareth Bale. Maybe interested in a player prop with him, but we talked about this the other day, and like this is huge for both of these teams to try and get out of this group. Is they both really need to win this match.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would expect we'll see a little bit more attacking from both sides here, trying to get that win. And while the line suggests that the U.S. is the favorite, look, there's going to be plenty of bettors out there going to the DK Sportsbook, myself included, that are going to bet the U.S. because we're all from the U.S., right? So we're just going to bet for our country. And so I think that skews the line here in favor of the United States. I think the best play is to avoid what doing everybody else does. Yes, it could be a little bit more of an open game, but I think the draw at plus 200 value is the best option here. This is not a weak Wales side. As you mentioned, Jesse, Gareth Bale on the back half of his career, of course, but he is still a top striker, and they have a ton of up-and-coming talent on this Welsh side, including Fulham's duo of Daniel James and Harry Wilson. This is a stronger Welsh side than I think people are giving him credit for. I think the line is skewed by U.S.-based bettors. And so I would look to the draw instead to differentiate yourself from the rest of the people playing this game.
Chinmay, what's your take on this one? How would you bet it?
AJ is correct. This is a pretty good Wales side, and Gareth Bale is probably, on his day, the best player on the pitch, regardless of who else, takes the field here for the U.S. and Wales. However, I think the Americans know that this is the money match for them. I believe that they feel that this is the game that they absolutely have to come out hard in, and they have a different strategy for Bale and the Welsh here. So I'm going with the Americans on the money line. As AJ mentioned, you're probably not going to differentiate yourself there, but you're still getting plus value here. And now you don't have to really be in a conflict. You can root for the home country.
All right, thank you, soccer dudes. Good stuff. We will continue to talk to you as the World Cup goes on. We'll see who wins these games. It's going to be fascinating. All right, MMA analyst Ian Parker is going to join us next to preview the 2022 PFL World Championship. But before that, yesterday, Emerson had a chance to catch up with Mike Golick. He talked everything Week 11. Let's take a look.
Mike Golick Sr., we meet again. How you doing? Everything's all right?
Oh, yeah, doing well. Looking forward to yet another week of football. I get to check out a place for the first time in my life, Mexico City, calling the Monday night game. So that will be a fun experience. Me and the wife are going out there to find some, what I hear are great places to eat. So I look forward to it.
Yeah, that's right, man. I hear they have some incredible street tacos, and I do want to talk about that game coming up. But this is the first time we spoke to you in a few weeks. And since then, Mike, Jeff Saturday has been named interim head coach of the Colts here. It's a move that's been met with tons and tons of outside criticism. But what grade would you give Saturday in his coaching debut, which was a win over the lowly Raiders?
The only thing you grade on is wins and losses in the pros, so he gets an A. I mean, that's just the way it is. That's what you're graded on in the NFL, in professional sports, is wins and losses. And that was a team that was obviously struggling. I had picked them to win the division, and they certainly had not been living up to that. And Matt Ryan gets benched. That was the first thing I thought when they hired Jeff. I said, I think he's going to bring Matt Ryan back, and that is what happened. So as far as the overall situation, listen, it was new. It was something out of the box. Jeff had only coached in high school. There were certainly coaches who had been head coaches, like a Gus Bradley, who had been a head coach, that was overlooked here. And for whatever Irsay's reasons were, he called Jeff, and Jeff said yes. And I don't blame Jeff for saying yes. I'd have said yes. A lot of players who have, if they have coaching aspirations, would say yes. But it does seem different to those who got passed over. People use the word, I know Bill Cowher was very critical and Joe Thomas was very critical, as far as the disrespect to the assistant coaches. And listen, this is the whole thing about the owner. It's his ball and he can do whatever he wants with it. And Jeff said, yes, you want to throw darts and saying this is out of kind of, left field, then look at the owner. Don't look at Jeff. I don't blame Jeff at all for saying yes. There are those saying, well, he should know, he's going in front of guys, he shouldn't take the job. That's bull. Yeah. Take the job. You got it offered to you, take the job. Because you don't know who he's going to hire if he doesn't, hire Jeff. If you have an issue with the way it went down, talk to Irsay about it. That's the one who made the decision, is responsible for the decision. Other than that, let's see what happens for the rest of the games. I have no clue. I mean, listen, they still have Minnesota and Dallas and some tough teams.
They got the Eagles this week.
Yeah, exactly, and the Eagles. So, those some tough teams. So let's wait and see. Again, it was unconventional, and we just have to kind of wait it out now.
All right, so you will say yes if a team calls you right now and says, hey, Mike Golick, we want you to be our head coach. Hey, maybe that team will end up being the Raiders right now. It may just be the most disappointing team in the NFL. How surprised are you with the amount of patience that Mark Davis is having with head coach Josh McDaniels there in Vegas?
Well, I mean, he got the dreaded vote of confidence. It seems like whenever a head coach gets the vote of confidence, that's quite the opposite.
Mike, that's what happened with Frank Wright. Remember?
Exactly
Irsay was like, oh, dude, he's our head coach. A week later, Jeff Saturday's in.
So, I mean, and this has happened multiple times. Yeah. So I think with a first-year head coach, and I know he's coach at Denver, I mean, his first year with the Raiders, I think it's difficult to pull the plug during the season. If their season keeps going the way it's going right now, which is horrible, what are they sitting at 2-7? Yeah. He could be in some trouble because the patience won't last that long, I think, after the season. During the season, it's always an interesting thing. Do you fire a guy during the season? You do it for multiple reasons. Like Matt Rule got fired. Where was the locker room? Was the locker room lost in this? If you fire a coach, now you can start a search committee for a new coach. Normally you do that behind closed doors if you still have a head coach. When you don't, you can go ahead and search for one. So that's a reason people fire during the regular season. But I think because it's his first year there, I don't think that's going to happen during the season. But if the season, keeps going the way it's going right now, I would not be shocked if there was a change made at the end of the season. There's no 3-year plans anymore. I mean, it's you better start showing improvement in year one. That's just the way it is now.
Yeah, it was interesting because Davis said Rome wasn't built in a day, which obviously would hold a lot more water if McDaniels actually took over a bad team in need of a rebuild. But Vegas, it's a playoff roster right now. Hey, another question entering week 11 here. What will the Vikings do for an encore? I mean, they're in Dallas. They're fresh off a 7th straight one-score victory and an absolute thriller against Buffalo. So you have this emotional road win in overtime. The Cowboys are coming off this emotional road loss in overtime. So which team has the edge here?
Well, I'm going to say Dallas because now you're playing, you lose that road game. You're sitting in the 3rd slot in the NFC East. And we know Jerry Jones, it's Super Bowl or bust for him every year. Now, all teams are like that. But Jerry, who has his own radio show and his first one in front of the cameras, is going to let you know that all the time. So the pressure is there, especially for Mike McCarthy, the head coach. So I think they're going to come out just swinging. They have to, coming off that loss. Minnesota, listen, I mean, it was a great win. What a game. I mean, Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, who you picking really as the best receiver in the league right now? They're both incredible with what they're doing. But now, Minnesota sits there with what, a 5-game lead, I believe it is, or 4.5-game lead in that division. So there's that sometimes that urge to take the foot off the gas pedal a little bit at times. I'm not saying they're going to do that, but I've been in both the situations these teams are in. And when you're coming off a loss and you're not where you want to be in that division, there's a little more going on at practice. People saying a little later. Practice is a little more focused at times, saying we got to get this thing back on track. And I think that's where the Cowboys are.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked, like with Josh Allen and that performance against the Vikings too, because he's now thrown 4 red zone interceptions in his last 2 games, which stands out even more considering those last 2 games were losses and they were 1-score games, for crying out loud. They're now in 3rd place in the AFC East. Yeah. It looks so weird to look at the standings. How much trouble is Buffalo in if Josh Allen doesn't start making smarter decisions here, Mike?
I mean, think about it. They went from basically first in the whole AFC into 6th. Yep. I mean, in one fell swoop. We're going to talk about Josh Allen. There's some bad throws. Yes. No doubt about that. But also where they have been struggling is run defense. They've been giving up a lot of yards the last few games. The one against Green Bay, they won the game. The Jets, they ran for over 170 yards. They lost that game. They lose this game. That defense is getting run on a little bit. And when you start to talk about playoffs and cold weather, that's what teams like to do. So Buffalo, not only, Josh Allen is going to grab the headlines of why isn't he throwing better? And hopefully he can work that out because it is night and day from what we've seen out of him. So can he straighten that out? But that run defense now, 3 weeks in a row, it's been a little bit iffy. So that's something I think they also have to shore up going forward.
Yeah, it just feels like he's not his typical MVP self right now because he's leading the league with 10 interceptions.
Amazing.
And he has 13 giveaways. So, I mean, it's a bad stretch of football right now.
All right, say hello to MMA analyst Ian Parker. He is here to preview the 2022 PFL World Championship. Ian, I want to get your favorite plays, ahead of this Friday, November 25th card featuring 6 title fights exclusively on ESPN Plus and ESPN Plus pay-per-view. So it's MMA's richest night, right? You got 6 world title fights, $6 million on the line, headlined by the biggest trilogy in PFL history. Kayla Harrison versus Larissa Pacheco. Let's get right into that main event. So Kayla Harrison, huge favorite at -600, but that's not actually a huge number considering she's been like -3,000, -1,200, -2,500 in her last 3 fights. So what does Larissa do well that makes her like only a +450 underdog?
I think it's the fact that Larissa has fought her twice before. Both fights went to a decision, which is something Kayla's not accustomed to. And on top of that, Larissa Pacheco continues to get better. She was well known for her grappling, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, but now her striking is evolving. It's getting better. It makes everything more threatening, and she carries a ton of power in her hands. So now if she can, and this is a big if she can stuff Kayla's takedowns at all, she's actually the better striker, which makes this fight more competitive, which takes that number from -1 billion down to -600 for Kayla Harrison.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. With that said, how does this one play out then?
You know what? It's interesting. You still have to assume, based on Kayla's resume, her accolades in the judo world, being an Olympic champion and being a PFL MMA champion, that she's still going to get this done. But the question is, how could she get it done, or what can Larissa do to kind of prevent it from happening so quickly? So last year I gave out a play. It was Kayla Harrison versus Taylor Guadardo over 1.5 rounds. I like that even more here. I don't think she gets Larissa down so easily. I think it's going to take a little bit of time. There'll be a lot of clinching involved, and she's going to have to be really careful of Larissa's power in her hand. So I like over 1.5 rounds. I even like over 2.5 rounds if you get better odds there. So that's what I would play in the main event right now, unless you got crazy billionaire money and you want to lay -600 on Kayla.
Okay, so the co-main event is Brendan Loughnane from the UK, Bubba Jenkins from the US. Jenkins was an All-American wrestler at Arizona State. Loughnane is the favorite in this one, -145. Jenkins is sitting at +125 as the dog. Who do you like in this matchup?
I'm a little surprised that Brendan Loughnane is the favorite here, not based on overall body of work, just based on this season alone, because the first 2 fights were a lot harder than projected for him, and He just fought really well, and he peaked at the right time against Chris Wade. For me, I like Bubba Jenkins here as the underdog. We saw Lockdown last season struggle against a really strong wrestler in Movlid Habulayev, and Jenkins has got the wrestling accolades that most people just don't. And on top of that, his hands continue to get better. The only thing that concerns me is the cardio of Jenkins, but we've seen him be able to put on a good pace this season, and he just keeps getting better and better. When you're a wrestler and you're one-dimensional, it doesn't take a lot to stuff the takedowns, but when your hands get better, it makes the wrestling more unpredictable, and I think that's where Bubba may have the edge. And at underdog odds, I'm going to go with Bubba Jenkins.
Okay, so the heavyweight championship pits Ante D'Elia against Mateus Scheffel. D'Elia knocked out Scheffel to start the season. So do you anticipate a repeat performance of that one next week? What do we think?
When we first started the season, I said that Ante D'Elia, I think, was the one flying under the radar to win this one. And now that he's getting another fight against someone he's already knocked out, the confidence is going to be through the roof. He also has the wrestling edge here, and he's been in the 5-rounders before. So I do think that he will win. I don't know if he'll knock Scheffel out again. It's certainly possible. He's got the hands to do it. But at that number, I'm confident taking Ante D'Elia just to win outright on the money line.
All right, in the light heavyweight title fight, Robert Wilkinson, -190 favorite over Omari Akhmedov. Seems like it should be a close match, but I know you're a little surprised that Wilkinson is only -190. So you like taking the money line here on this one?
Yeah, the number's still low enough where I'm comfortable taking Rob Wilkinson. You know, we saw Omari Akhmedov get dropped in his second fight against someone that's not known for being a knockout artist, and Wilkinson is excellent on the ground. He's excellent on the feet. He's very smart, takes good angles, makes smart decisions, has a good chin, zero ego, zero emotion when he goes into the fight. This just seems to be his year. You know, he's fighting someone in Omari Akhmedov who, if he doesn't knock you out, he tends to gas out. And I think as the fight goes on, that also favors Wilkinson. As long as he can weather the early storm of Omari Akhmedov, I think this is Wilkinson's year to continue to shine, and that shine gets a little brighter with a PFL championship belt around his waist.
All right, speaking of shining bright, PFL's big new signing, Aspen Ladd, -225 favorite over Julia Budd. High expectations for Ladd. She has 6 career knockouts. Does Budd have a chance in this one?
Bud's got a great chance here. You know, I'm actually quite surprised that Aspen Ladd is this big of a favorite, considering she hasn't won her last couple of fights. She has struggled to make weight in the UFC. And Julia Budd, granted, she hasn't looked fantastic either. The level of experience she's had, she's been a champion before in other organizations. She has fought literally the best of the best. And Aspen's kind of a one-dimensional fighter. She does not have great hands. You know, if she doesn't get top position, she looks a little clueless out there. She looks like she's defeated if she can't implement her game. And for Julia Budd, her hands are way better. So if she can keep the fight standing, this could actually be an easy win for her. Might be a big if, but if you're going to bet this fight for me, it's dog or pass. I'm going to go with the seasoned veteran Julia Budd.
Ooh, picking an upset here. So a huge pay-per-view, but there are also some amazing fights on the undercard. I know you want the Marlon Moraes and Shaman Moraes to have to put naming rights on that, and like loser has to give up their last name, right? We'll see if they're into that. Just kidding. But a few other ones, including 2-time PFL champ Nathan Schultz going up against Jeremy Stevens. So despite Schultz being a -380 favorite, you're excited for this one. What's like a bet from this undercard? Doesn't have to be one of those that you're leaning towards.
You know what? I'll sweeten the pot a little bit. I'll throw one on both those you just mentioned. I like Shaman Moraes to get past Marlon Moraes. I think the loser losing their last name is actually hilarious, you know, but Shaman Moraes, I just think at this point in his career, has the tools to win. Marlon, if he doesn't knock you out quick, he gets knocked out, unfortunately. I think Nathan Schultz wins this fight by decision. Jeremy Stevens is very durable. And another play, I like Magomed Karamov to win by decision over Gleison Tebow, also on the undercard.
Okay, lastly, going back to that co-main event, the featherweight title fight, it's a U.S. and British fighter. So next Friday is also the USA-England game for the World Cup. DraftKings has a special parlay for Lafayette and England to both win, or for Jenkins and the U.S. team. So you said you're picking Jenkins. Any faith in the U.S. national team to complete like the other leg of the parlay here? What do we think?
You know what? It's a tough task. USA has not looked amazing, and England has looked incredible. Obviously, heavy favorites here. But you know what? Everyone likes a good long shot parlay, so why not? Let's tie both together. I'm going to roll with it with you guys.
All right, why not? I love it. Just sprinkle a little on there. Thank you, Ian. Appreciate the time as always. Watch the PFL World Championship live on Black Friday, November 25th, exclusively on ESPN Plus and ESPN Plus pay-per-view. So 6 title fights. Ian gave you some great picks and some great info there. Buy the pay-per-view. Cash those tickets. Should be an amazing night in New York. We'll be right back with NBA after this. Game slate coming your way in the NBA tonight. Let's do a little price check with DraftKings contributor Gary and Thorne. Gary, and help us make sense of what to do here. Luka Doncic continues to do Luka things, coming off a casual 35-point, 11-rebound, 5-assist night with 3 steals against the Clippers. He's listed as the highest priced player on the slate at $12,700. Is he a must roster?
It's tough because you want to say yes, he's the best fantasy producer on a per game basis of any player in the NBA. But the problem is his price point has gotten so crazy that I don't think this is like the ideal set of circumstances to use Luka on a slate. He's $12,700. So if you need him to bring back 5x value, he's got to score 63.5 DraftKings points tonight. He's only actually done that in 5 of his 13 games so far this season. This is also a spot against Denver where we already know that Nikola Jokic has been ruled out. We know that Jamal Murray has been ruled out. This is one of the bigger spreads on the DraftKings Sportsbook. I just worry that maybe this script gets a little out of hand and Luka doesn't have to play his full allotment of minutes because the Mavericks are up 15 or 20 or 25 points going into the fourth quarter. So again, I'm never going to sit here and say that you can't use Luka. He's amazing. I just don't think tonight is the right night. I think there are other directions we can go, and we'll talk about those in a sec.
Yes, we will. Giannis, Embiid, and Davis all available as center options tonight. Two of them are priced above $11K. Are you considering rostering any of these guys, or are they priced too high? Are you looking to save some money somewhere else?
So, as is always the case, before noon on an 11-game NBA slate, there's just so much news that we have to account for right now. But I will say, I really like Anthony Davis if LeBron James does not play tonight. LeBron's missed his last 2 games. He's questionable. He practiced, but he didn't practice with contact yesterday. It was a whole weird thing. Who knows? But we'll probably find out about LeBron in like 4 or 5 hours. And if he's not playing, Davis has shown himself incredibly well in the 2 games LeBron has missed. He put up 56.5 DraftKings points in the first game, 63.5 DraftKings points in their last contest. He's just the focal point of that offense when LeBron's not around. He's looked really, really good, as I've mentioned, in the month of November. And this is a fantastic matchup for anyone, particularly if you're going to have a usage rate above 30%. Not only are the Pistons on the second night of a back-to-back, but they are missing their starting power forward center in Isaiah Stewart, and they have the worst defensive rating in the NBA, giving up over 116 points per 100 possessions. So I think Anthony Davis can absolutely eat tonight, particularly if LeBron is unavailable.
All right, Celtics offense has been putting up historically significant scoring thus far in the season. Safe to say they would not be the best team in the NBA without superstar Jason Tatum. He's the 5th highest priced player on the board at 10.8. Are you rostering him or going with another forward?
So this is kind of like that Luka situation for me, where Tatum's always viable. He's a fantastic player. Doesn't quite do as much in the secondary statistics as Luka Doncic does. But I'm not sure if this is the exact right circumstance to pay almost $11K for Jason Tatum on a slate this big with as many options available. You look at his production with and without Marcus Smart. I think that's a really big element to his viability on Friday night. It was sort of that prevailing narrative for the first half of the Celtics season last year. And while it's gone away somewhat, I still think it rings true that he and Jaylen Brown are much more effective when there is someone else there to run the show and when they don't have to run the show. And that really plays out with Smart and with Tatum's on-off numbers this year in regards to Marcus Smart. When Smart is on the court sharing it with Jason Tatum, Tatum is averaging 1.5 DraftKings points per minute. When Marcus Smart is not available, that drops all the way down to 1.16, which is still pretty good, but it's not that great if you're paying $11K for a player. So I think you have to watch the availability of Marcus Smart tonight. He's questionable, did not play in the Celtics last game, and that was an underwhelming performance for Jason Tatum from a fantasy perspective. So you factor all that in and then add in that over their last 5 games, the Pelicans have a top 5 defensive rating in the NBA. I just think, again, this is a situation where in a vacuum, Tatum's a very good player, but I don't think this is the proper set of circumstances to pay that much money for him tonight.
All right, Donovan Mitchell, confirmed, still good at basketball. With such a huge slate, he does seem a little mispriced at 9,100. Are you locking him in or looking elsewhere at guard?
I don't have a problem with Mitchell. I just think there's other guards in that like half tier above him that I would rather exploit. I think like Steph Curry, Ja Morant, and in particular, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. At this point, I think like my number one DFS rule of 2022-23 is going to be if Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is less than 10K, I have to use Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And he's just under. He's 9.9 tonight. But this is someone who for the season has a 33.9% usage rate. He's averaging almost 1.5 DraftKings points per minute played. Trey Mann is not available for Oklahoma City tonight. He's kind of their like de facto point guard, or at least like another guard to line up next to Shai. Not a huge usage guy by any means, but again, his absence just creates even more opportunity for SGA to go out and have just a massive night. And then the other thing, sort of like the self-fulfilling prophecy of the Oklahoma City Thunder, they create their own fantastic offensive environments. Across the last 5 games, they have the highest pace in the NBA, averaging over 104 possessions per 48 minutes. So just up tempo, ball's always in his hands, and again, less than 10K. I think SGA is maybe my favorite play on the slate as a whole.
All right, 11-game NBA slate. Who's your value play?
Bunch of different guys you could go to. There are so many injuries tonight. I think the number one value play is Bones Highland. I mentioned already that the Nuggets are missing their top two scorers in Murray and Jokic. With those two guys off the court so far this season, Highland has a 32.5% usage rate. And this is a guy who doesn't need someone to be out for him to step into some opportunities. He loves to shoot the basketball. He's averaging 27 field goal attempts per 100 possessions this season. That is more than Kevin Durant. That is more than Devin Booker. That is just under how many Jason Tatum averages per game. Like, it really is insane how much of a conscience or the lack of a conscience, really, that Bones Highland has on any given night. I think Theo Maldon is also in a nice spot with LaMelo Ball out tonight. And I would say that we just found out about 15 minutes ago that Jimmy Butler has been ruled out for the Heat and Bam Adebayo is closer to doubtful than he is questionable. You can basically pick any Heat small forward or shooting guard out of a hat, whether it's Caleb Martin, Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, doesn't matter. All of them are viable. All of them are great value plays tonight. That's just where the Heat are right now.
All right, take us to the DK Sportsbook. What is your favorite bet?
Gonna go to probably the premier game of the night, Philadelphia and Milwaukee, big battle in the Eastern Conference. I'm gonna take the under here. There's just a lot of data and a lot of trends that point towards the under, even though it's not a particularly large number at just 212.5. The Bucks have by far the best defensive rating in all of basketball. I think it goes without saying that when Brook Lopez is on the floor with Giannis Antetokounmpo, that's the best defense in the NBA. And Philadelphia, without James Harden, is probably going to feel the effects of that defense. Harden's absence is also notable because Philadelphia's defense has been almost 3 points per 100 possessions better without Harden on the floor this season, so they've been a better defensive team since he's been injured. Philadelphia also the slowest paced team in the Eastern Conference. It's going to happen when Joel Embiid is kind of lumbering up and down the court. So slow pace, two really good defenses. I just see this being a rock fight. And that's played out in some of these trends. Philadelphia is 4-1 to the under their last 5 games. The Bucks are 19-7 to the under across their last 26. So these trends have been going on for a long time, even dating back to last season. I think this game goes under.
All right, good stuff, Gary. Appreciate the time. As always, that is going to do it for NBA. One more break, one more block to go. We are talking college football with Colin Sherwin. Stay tuned. It's the penultimate week of the college football regular season. So we are joined now by DK Nation's Colin Sherwin in his hoodie, ready to give us picks, your best bets for this weekend's college football slate. So give us a game with the most consequence, like potential disturbance of like Power 5 Conference Championship. Like, what do we think? I mean, Volunteers on the outside of the college football playoff picture looking in. They're the number 5 team in the nation. What do we think?
I still don't know if Tennessee even gets in, even if they win out. I mean,
Really?
to me, the most consequential game this week is TCU Baylor. If TCU can find a way to get through and then can find a way into the Big 12 championship game, the Big 12 is finally, without Oklahoma for the first time, finally going to be able to get to the college football playoff. It's huge. They're a dog on the road against a Baylor team that's kind of The numbers don't love TCU nearly as much as I do. And as much fun as they've been this season, the stats haven't really caught up to them. I thought what they did at Texas last week was incredibly impressive. So for me, that's the most consequential game. The second one would probably be the Utah-Oregon eliminator game. It's basically an elimination game for the Pac-12 championship. Remember, no more divisions in the Pac-12 this year. So the top 2 teams, no matter of all the 12, the top 2 are going to play for the title. And basically, the loser of this game is probably out of that mix. I do think the Pac-12's eliminated themselves from the CFP. I don't even see a way that, like, even if USC wins out, that they could get there. But yeah, that's kind of where things are right now. But to me, TCU Baylor is the most important game, the one I'm the most focused on the board this week.
All right, looking at this Week 12 lineup here, what's the likeliest upset that you see?
I am not just sucking up to my boss Ben Zwyman at DK, but I'm going to go with the West Virginia Mountaineers. The catch at 7.5 at home against a Kansas State team that's going to go with backup Will Howard. Adrian Martinez not going to be available. Garrett Green, his quarterback, really injected some life into that team last week. They're at home. They're catching the hook. I really think West Virginia could win this game outright. They're playing for their coach's job. And the difference is with this coach and a lot of coaches that have been fired already this season is that they actually like Neil Brown. They're going to go out and play for him. This is a team that at times this year has shown the ability to win on the outside and make some big plays. I think they can do that here. They have a tough time stopping K-State. The big thing's going to be the defenses that are really struggle. But if they can find a way to get a turnover to get off the field a couple of times, especially home, I think they can win this outright. So give me West Virginia at 7.5.
All right, Colin, how about a non-Power 5 matchup that you're on this week?
Oh, let's go to like borderline Division III football. UConn's playing. Bowl-bound UConn. 10.5 they're getting at Army. I just think that's too many. This is a decent matchup for a UConn team that is, look, they're bad, but they're bowl eligible. They're playing really hard. And their defense is actually the side of the ball that they struggle with the least. They're going to struggle to move the ball against Army, but they should be able to get off the field and get a couple stops against triple option. So I really like UConn here, 10.5. I don't know if they can win this game outright, but remember, they are also trying to win because if they get to 7, they basically lock in a bowl. Right now they're at 6 and they need some things to happen and they need some other teams to win and lose. If they get to 7, basically the bowl coalition has to find a spot for them. So I think UConn's got something to play for here. They're on the road, but I still think it's the right spot. So I'm taking UConn and 10.5.
Okay, how about your favorite over on the board for this week?
Okay, so I just got yelled at by our producer for coming in. He's like, you change all the questions all the time. I'm changing this question.
Change
Forget
it.
the over. The best under of the season is here. I was playing Minnesota. It's going to be like 1 degree. It's not even like plural degrees. It's going to be like 1 degree. The wind is going to be blowing from all over the place. I was the worst offense I've ever seen. The total on this game, and I'm not making this up, is 32.5. That's not for one team. That's for both teams to score under 32.5 points this week. I am going even further than that. Remember, 17-10 is a win here. And I don't think either one of these teams gets to 17. So give me the under here. Iowa, Minnesota, under 32.5. I would go as low as 30 on this game. Nobody's going to be able to score. It's going to be the ultimate rock fight. The only way you lose this game is if it goes to overtime at like 2-2. And then you just get beat in OT. Only way you're losing this game.
All right, how about calling your favorite spread here? There's some massive ones on the board. Where are you looking?
So I really like Kansas catching 9 because with Jalen Daniels coming back to the Jayhawks, I think he really inspires that offense. They'd like to get one more. Remember, they beat Texas at Texas last year. They will not be intimidated. And this game is in Lawrence this year. Texas coming off like a really poor performance. Have they just started to sort of mail it in for the rest of the season? I think that's possible. All the motivation, the fresh quarterback, everything coming back just seems to be in the Jayhawks' favor. They're getting 9 right now. I'm going to take Kansas at home, getting 9. And we'll see what happens with Texas for the rest of the season. It's been a great season. It's been a terrible season. It's been a great season. It's been a terrible season. I think it's going to end on a down note for them.
All right, Colin, we've made it. Here we go. Favorite overall bet for Week 12 in college football. What's it going to be?
Your TCU Horned Frogs. The House of Duggan is here. Believe the purple. The Hypnotoad is here. They're going to do it again. All they do is do it. All they do is win. Nobody gives them any credit. Nobody gives them any respect. The computers hate them. So many people. This team is for real. Look what they did to Texas last week on the road. They're going to do it again. They're laying 2.5 right now. I'd lay 3.5 comfortably. TCU, they're going to do it. This team is going to play in the college football play. Are they going to get washed by like Georgia when they get there? Of course. That doesn't matter. They are clearly the 4th best team in the country, and they're only laying at a Baylor team that's been really up and down this year, has shown no consistency and struggles on defense. TCU is the lock.
I mean, all they do is do it, TCU. There you go.
Sometimes you got to ignore the computers. This is one of those spots.
All they do is do it. Thank you, Colin Sherwin. We appreciate it. As always, that's a show, everybody. Madden starting at noon. That is part of a 6-game slate. Coughlin Lamarca will be back with the slate tonight at 5 p.m. We will be back in studio Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern. Make sure you join us. We'll see you then.